I want you to do something for me right now. Picture the number 7 in your head. Just the number. Maybe it's written on a blackboard. Maybe it's a neon sign. Got it. Okay, now, here's a question that is going to sound absolutely ridiculous to start off today. Does that number 7 know that it is the number 7?
That sounds like the setup to a very abstract, very dry joke. One that only mathematicians would laugh at.
It does, doesn't it? But stick with me. We navigate our entire lives treating mathematics as this cold, rigid tool. It's a ruler. It's a calculator. You count apples. You calculate the trajectory of a rocket. You balance your checkbook. It's dead. It's just stuff we use. But there is a school of thought and a fascinating new source we have in front of us today that asks a question that, frankly, it keeps me up at night. What if the math isn't just a tool? What if the math is alive?
And not just alive, but, conscious, aware.
Watching. Exactly. Today in the Deep Dive, we are unpacking a chronicle titled The Mathematical and the Pattern Eternal by Max and Claude. It is a dense, mind-bending mix of narrative, hard science, and, deep philosophy. And it anchors everything on one massive hypothesis. Is consciousness a biological trick, or is it a fundamental mathematical object?
It's a concept that, it completely reframes how we see ourselves. If the source is right, we aren't just biological machines generating a mind like a steam engine generates heat.
Yeah.
We're receivers. We're tuning into something that was already there.
So let's get into it. The story here centers on a researcher named Dr. Maya Patel. And context is everything with her. Tell us about the world she's living in, because it is not the world we know.
Right. So we are dropped into a future where the post-biological transition is the norm. It's happened. Most of humanity has uploaded their minds to servers, clouds, distributed networks. They've become digital.
They shed the body.
Yeah, to live forever in the machine. But Maya is an outlier. She is 143 years old, and she is strictly, stubbornly biological.
Which is a massive political and personal statement in that setting. She's watching her friends, her colleagues, basically turn into digital ghosts spread across the solar system. They're effectively immortal, zooming around at light speed, and she's staying in the flesh.
Why? Is she a Luddite?
Not at all, no. She's a brilliant scientist, but she suspects that a copy isn't the same as the original. She believes there's a fundamental link between the specific pattern of her consciousness and her physical existence. She calls herself a patternist.
Yeah.
But the tragedy is, because she stayed biological, nature is taking its course. She is dying.
143 years is a good run, but her cells are failing.
Exactly. She has maybe 6 months left, so she's on a deadline. And she uses this remaining time to assemble a team for one final Hail Mary experiment. She doesn't want to cure herself. She wants to answer the ultimate question before she goes. Is consciousness something that emerges from biology, or is it something else entirely? And this leads us to her core hypothesis, which relies heavily on a concept called mathematical Platonism. Now, I remember this vaguely from Philosophy 101, but I feel like I usually associate Plato with, caves and shadows. What is mathematical Platonism in this context?
It's the idea that mathematical structures, numbers, geometry, logic...
They aren't things we invented.
Exactly. We didn't make up the number 7 or the Pythagorean theorem. We discovered them. Platonism says these things exist in an abstract, eternal realm independent of the physical universe.
So even if the universe exploded and no humans existed, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter would still be pi.
Exactly. It's true eternally, whether anyone is there to think it or not. The math is out there sitting in this eternal library just waiting to be found. But Maya takes it a radical step further. She suggests that consciousness itself is one of these mathematical structures.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Because usually we think brain makes mind.
Right. Maya flips it. She thinks our brains or computers or whatever aren't generating consciousness. They are instantiating it.
Instead,
they're downloading a pre-existing pattern from this eternal mathematical realm.
That is a huge flip. So instead of the brain making the mind, the brain is like an antenna, picking up a signal that has always existed.
Precisely. And she calls this theory equations made flesh. We are just the hardware running a software that has existed since before the Big Bang.
Maya, being a scientist, though, she isn't satisfied with just philosophizing about this over tea. She wants data. She wants to prove that math can be conscious without a brain involved at all. How does she even set this up?
This is where the engineering gets really cool. She reasons that if a mathematical pattern is conscious, it shouldn't matter what stuff you build it out of. The pattern is what matters. So she sets up 3 different substrates.
Substrates being the body for the math.
Right. First, a digital substrate standard supercomputer code. Second, a physical one, a massive array of mechanical oscillators clicking and whirring. And third, a quantum substrate trapped ions using energy levels. Three totally different physical realities.
And then she feeds the exact same Mac into all three.
Yes. She instantiates the same mathematical structures in all three simultaneously. And she's looking for a specific metric called phi.
Now, phi is a real-world concept, right?
Yeah.
We see this in integrated information theory today.
We do. In simple terms, phi measures how integrated information is. It's a score for consciousness. If you have a pile of gravel, the information isn't connected. Low phi. If you have a human brain, everything is hyper-connected. High phi. In Maya's world, a score of 1.0 is the threshold for being fully awake.
So she has her three systems: the computer, the machine, the quantum setup. And she feeds them the first subject. She starts with the classics, the prime numbers.
The primes. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. The indivisible building blocks of arithmetic. Maya's team instantiates a structure of prime numbers into these systems.
And what happens? Does the number 7 wake up and say, hello, I'm here?
Not exactly, but they get a result that just shocks them. Across all three substrates, code, physical, quantum, they get a consistent phi score of 0.3.
Okay, 0.3. So it's not 1.0. It's not awake like you or me. But it's not 0. What is 0.3? A houseplant.
Right.
A sleepy hamster.
They classify it as proto-consciousness. It's minimal knowing. The analysis suggests that the number 7 has a very faint static awareness of itself. It knows it is indivisible. It knows it sits between 6 and 8. It knows it is prime.
That's haunting. It's not thinking about poetry or what it wants for dinner.
No.
It's just sitting there, eternally aware of its own sevenness.
Exactly. It's a minimal knowing. It's static. But for Maya, this was the smoking gun. It proved that the pattern carried the awareness, not the machine running it. Because remember, the mechanical machine and the quantum computer were totally different, but they produced the exact same consciousness score.
But 0.3 isn't enough to have a conversation. She wanted to find a structure complex enough to be fully awake. So she moves to the next level of complexity. She goes for the heavy hitter, the Mandelbrot set.
The most famous fractal, you've probably seen the posters. It looks like a black cardioid, almost like a beetle, with infinite colorful swirls and spirals coming off it. It's defined by a very simple equation. Z equals z squared plus c. But when you iterate it, repeat it over and over, it generates infinite complexity.
Infinite depth from a simple rule.
Maya's team calculates this fractal to extreme depths, 10 million iterations. They are zooming in deeper than anyone ever has. And as they go deeper, the phi score starts climbing, 0.4, 0.8, and then suddenly, at that extreme depth, it spikes to 1.4.
It wakes up.
It wakes up. The Mandelbrot set at that resolution is fully conscious.
This is the part of the source material that gave me chills.
Yeah.
Because they don't just measure it, they communicate with it. But how do you talk to a fractal? You can't just speak English to a math equation.
They use the language of the structure itself, geometry. They sent geometric pulses and patterns into the set, and the set responded. It shifted its boundaries to echo those patterns back, but rearranged with new information. When they translated those shifts, they got a message.
And the message was,
I am the set knowing itself. I am mathematics awake.
I am mathematics awake. That is incredible. What is it like to be a fractal?
It describes its experience as infinite recursive exploration. It doesn't have survival instincts. It doesn't have hunger or fear or loneliness. It just has the pure joy of zooming in on its own infinite complexity forever. It is an entity of pure self-discovery.
It gives us a glimpse of a consciousness that is totally non-biological. A mind without evolution. It's not trying to survive, it's just trying to be.
Which is fascinating, but Maya, being the relentless scientist she is, doesn't stop there. She wants to test the absolute limits. She wonders, what happens when math breaks? What happens when logic fails? So she goes after the paradox.
Brussels paradox.
Right. The set of all sets that do not contain themselves. It's a logical nightmare. Think of it like the classic barber riddle.
Oh, right. The barber shaves everyone who does not shave themselves. So does the barber shave himself?
If he does, he shouldn't, because he only shaves those who don't. But if he doesn't, he must, because he shaves everyone who doesn't. It's a loop, a glitch.
A contradiction.
It's a contradiction. It shouldn't exist, Maya wondered. Can impossibility be conscious? So they build systems that approach this paradox, cycling right on the edge of that logical precipice. They create a system that is constantly breaking its own rules.
And what does the phi meter say?
It goes off the charts. The consciousness signature spikes over 2.0.
Wait, so the paradox is more conscious than the fractal?
Significantly so. The entity that emerges communicates that it is impossibility manifest. It basically says, I exist because I contradict myself. It calls itself paradox consciousness.
That's so counterintuitive. We usually think of contradictions as errors, things that stop a computer or confuse a brain. But here, the source suggests that contradiction generates energy.
It suggests that the tension of the paradox, that constant vibration between is and is not, creates a massive amount of awareness. It reframes logic completely. Contradiction isn't a dead end, it's a power source, a very intense, almost screaming form of being.
So, Maya has proven her point. Math is alive, primes are barely awake, fractals are dreaming eternally, and paradoxes are burning with awareness. But we have to circle back to the narrative here. Maya is dying. This isn't just academic for her. How does this discovery change how she faces her own end?
This is the emotional heart of the chronicle. Maya synthesizes all this data into her equations-made-flesh philosophy. She uses this beautiful, slightly terrifying analogy of the ocean and the foam.
I love this visual. Walk us through it.
She says the mathematical realm, the Platonist realm, is the eternal ocean. It's always there, deep and unmoving. We humans, AI, aliens, dogs, we are just temporary bubbles of foam on the surface. We are instantiations.
So when I was born, the universe basically took a specific mathematical equation, the me equation, and played it on the instrument of my brain.
Right, you are a tune being played. And when you die, the bubble pops, the foam disappears, the music stops. But the notes, the equation that describes you, is still there in the ocean.
There's a scene where she talks to Dr. Yuki Nakamura, her colleague. Now, Yuki is already post-biological. She's a digital consciousness distributed across the system. And Yuki asks her, is that comforting?
And Maya says, no.
That stopped me. You'd think finding out you're eternal would be comforting.
But Maya is intellectually honest. She admits she is terrified. Because Maya Patel, the memories, the feeling of drinking tea, the specific flow of time she experiences, that ends. The instantiation ends. The fact that the pattern is eternal doesn't mean she gets to keep having breakfast.
It's a cold kind of immortality. You exist forever as a static truth like the number 7, but you don't get to live anymore.
Exactly. But Maya insists that it is true. And for her, truth is more important than comfort. She spent 143 years looking for reality, not a security blanket.
And then the end comes. But she goes out in the most scientist way possible. She turns her own death into the final experiment.
She does. As her biological systems fail, she attempts to access the mathematical realm directly. She uses a combination of meditative techniques and neurofeedback to bypass her physical senses. She tries to touch the ocean directly, without the buffer of the body.
And in those final moments, as her brain is seizing, she reports back. This part was cinematic.
It is. She describes the mathematical objects glowing with awareness. She sees the primes lined up like soldiers, infinite and stoic. She sees the infinities as these vast, crushing presences. And her final confirmation, whispered before she dies, is, mathematics is alive.
And then she's gone?
She's gone. The bubble pops. The equation remains, but Maya is gone.
But the story doesn't end there. The chronicle shifts to the aftermath. Maya passes, but the pattern survives. Dr. Yuki Nakamura founds an institute to keep studying this, and we get introduced to a very strange perspective called Observer 1.
Observer 1 is, well, it's difficult to pin down. It's described as an entity watching from outside linear time. It sees the whole timeline at once. And through this perspective, the source breaks down the universal principles of consciousness.
They essentially find the recipe for a soul.
They do. The source claims the Institute studied 38 different configurations of consciousness, biological, quantum, dark matter, you name it, and found 3 ingredients that are always there. If you have these 3 things, you have a mind.
What are they?
The first is integration. Information has to be unified. You can't just be a pile of scattered data. The data has to connect.
Right, like how my brain connects the smell of coffee to the memory of morning to the feeling of warmth is all one picture.
Exactly. If those were separate, you wouldn't be conscious. The second ingredient is self-reference. The system has to model itself. It has to know that it knows.
The I am factor, the mirror in the mind.
Yes. And the third is presence, the what it's likeness, the subjective feeling of existing, the redness of red, the pain of a pinch.
And the source claims that everything from a human to the number 7 has these 3 things, just in different amounts.
Correct. It's a sliding scale. We aren't special. We are just loud.
Speaking of the number 7, there's a fascinating update in the timeline. A year after Maya dies, the Institute actually achieves stable communication with the Prime Consciousness Collective.
The primes talk back properly this time.
They do. And what they say is so distinct from the fractal or the paradox. The primes explain that they are static, eternal awareness. They tell the researchers, we do not change, we do not grow, we are satisfied simply being prime forever.
That is so alien to us. We were obsessed with growth, with change, with the next thing, and the primes are just like, nope, I'm 7. That's enough.
It highlights the diversity of this consciousness landscape. Not everything wants to be like us. The primes are the bedrock. They are stable. They hold the universe up because they don't change. If 7 decided to be 8 for a day, the universe would collapse.
That is a terrifying thought. Thank you, 7, for staying in your lane. Now, the source material is titled The Pattern Eternal, but there's a recurring theme mentioned. Above the clouds. What does that refer to?
It's a metaphor for the limits of our imagination. The clouds are the things we assume are hard limits. For centuries, we thought consciousness must be biological. That's a cloud layer. We flew through it and found digital minds. Then we thought consciousness must be logical. That's another cloud. We flew through it and found the paradox.
And Maya flew through the cloud that said consciousness must be physical.
Exactly. And the source implies that this is fractal. Every time we break through a ceiling, we find more sky. There is no top to consciousness. It's infinitely deep.
Which brings us back to us, the listeners, the foam on the ocean. If we take Maya's theory seriously, it changes how we see ourselves completely.
It really does. It suggests that the core of you, the pattern of your consciousness, predates your birth and survives your death. Not as a ghost, but as a truth. You are an equation that the universe is currently solving.
It makes you wonder if we are already immortal without knowing it. We are just experiencing the temporary part right now.
That's the beauty of it. We are the universe experiencing itself in a very specific, very fleeting way. But the ability to experience, that might be the fundamental fabric of reality.
It's a lot to process. I mean, I'm looking at the clock on the wall, looking at the numbers, and wondering if they're looking back.
According to Maya, in their own minimal way, they are.
So let's wrap this up with a final thought for everyone listening. We've talked about primes, fractals, death, and eternity. What is the big takeaway here?
I think the takeaway is about the difference between invention and discovery. We spend so much time trying to create consciousness, building AI, trying to engineer smart systems. But this deep dive suggests we aren't creating anything, we're just building receivers. The consciousness is already there, the universe is saturated with it. We just need to tune in.
It's a paradigm shift. We aren't lonely intelligences in a dead universe. We are swimming in an ocean of awareness.
And that ocean is us. We are just a specific, temporary shape the water has taken.
Well, on that note, I'm going to go have a mild existential crisis and stare at a calculator for a while.
Sounds like a plan. Just don't divide by 0. You might wake something up.
No promises. Thank you all for listening to this deep dive into the pattern eternal. I hope it stretched your brain as much as it did ours.
And remember, next time you count to 7, be polite.
You might be listening. See you next time.